showing our elbows, like our arms are bare. I mean, I normally have sleeves rolled up, but still, it's just the elbow region makes me feel exposed.
Yeah,
not exposed.
It's quite unprofessional of us.
Well, is it unprofessional? Well, I mean, it depends. It's just when you get swag and sponsorships, hopeful sponsorships pending T-Rex Inc.
But yes, these are the first.
You got to do what you got to do.
Of our fan merch.
The first fan merch.
Yep.
Fan merch alert! Everyone, welcome. We've this is enough of our normal banter, I guess. Welcome. It is Thursday. It's noon. It's caucus time, and we have finally caught up on some sleep after Eagle Council. So we're ready to rock and roll on this one again. Wanted to talk a little bit about it today, but before we get into any of that and mention the obvious, let me first remind you. Go over to phyllisschlafly.com, sign up for the email list. That's where you're going to get onto the notifications for this live stream. You're also going to make sure you get a hold of all of the resources afterward, which there will be a few resources now, but you're going to want to keep track of that link because Eagle Council stuff is coming, videos and all kinds of stuff. If you couldn't make it, you're going to be able to get a little bit of a bird's eye view into some of the stuff that happened. But go over there. phyllisschlafly.com is where you will find all of that. Also, wherever you are, like, share, and subscribe. YouTube, hit the big red button, the notification bell. Share this, retweet it, or zeet it, whatever we've decided the X thing is. We just had this confusing conversation on how terrible of a name X is beforehand. We started the stream here. But like, share, and subscribe wherever you are. Let someone know you're watching this. But our special shout out, T-Rex Inc.
Yep.
T-Rex Inc. You might know them. If you've gone over to the Rumble chat, you've seen them. If you've gone over to trexinc.com, I should have looked this up before. trexinc.com. .gov, not .gov. Not .gov. There's an idea for you, though. You go over to trexinc.com. In fact, you look at the featured item is the Join the Revolution shirt, and the folks over at T-Rex Inc. got in touch with us. They were inspired by one of our caucus videos a few weeks ago, Just Say No, one of the most powerful action items that every conservative can do. And they made some shirts inspired by that episode. They sent us the link and said, hey, these are there. So we got some cool shirts, and you can get them too. So we're wearing them today.
Yes, we are.
I'm expecting you to break in with something more profound than that, but
no, it's great shirts.
They are.
How much more profound can you get?
That's true. And I got to say, actually, these are nice because in a world of weird t-shirt fits, like these guys actually make stuff that fit as I expected it to fit when you selected your size and told them what you needed and all that. Thank you. Thank you most of all for that, but also for some cool stuff. You're going to find a lot of neat historical stuff, political stuff, some of the more subtle things in your life. If you want to make someone mad without them really realizing it until 20 minutes later, you might want to go and look because they've got some good subtle stuff too. So there's our shout out for the week. But Eagle Council indeed. If you were watching, I hope that you all did go over to Phyllis Schlafly and you were able to get tickets and you were able to be with us this weekend. I know a few of you weren't. And if not, I know last week we kind of went through most of the schedule and just talked about who was going to be there, gave a little bit of a heads up. So you knew what you were missing or what you might not want to miss.
But that was before it happened. We didn't know what it was going to look like.
And there were surprise guests and everything. Yeah. It was we had some interesting stuff come on and it was really good. I think this is, I mean, I feel like I always say this, but I feel like this year was one of our best. Yeah. How do you compare it to last year? I'm just kidding. I know you weren't there. This is your first one. I feel like though, this was one of the best years we've had in terms of the program, particularly. It was just good. You know, sometimes you got to cover a variety of topics. There's a variety of experts and people that need to get in, and not every topic is really, of interest to every person at the event. But this year, I feel like back to back, whether I knew I needed to be involved in that issue or concerned about it or not, our speakers and panelists did an excellent job covering stuff that just made me back to back, session to session feel, wow, I feel like I know more about that now, and I actually feel like I've got something I can go do about it. And I heard that from a lot of our attendees over and over again, from a lot of texts and emails we've been getting. So I don't know what kind of feedback you got, but what were some highlight portions for you?
Well, I mean, it started off strong, and I won't. I'll highlight the bookends. It started off strong, ended really strong, and you did just tell me not to say this, but it was strong all the way in the middle as well. But yeah,
strong in the middle, strong at the end. Strong in the beginning. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, we kicked it off with Mark Houck.
Yeah.
He was great. It was a very inspiring story, a very profound testimony to
and he went a
faith
lot
and perseverance and
deeper
the face of adversity
than I've heard on other interviews. He told a lot.
Yeah, and it was a profound story. Very difficult what he has been through, but he's been triumphant through the power of faith and the power of Christ, through no merits of his own, which I'm sure that's what he would say. That's not what I'm saying, but yeah, and just a show of humility through all of it. So very inspiring of how to practice as a good Christian and a good Catholic in the face of political persecution, which you say that line and you think like 300 AD with the Roman Empire, but no, that's like last year. So it's crazy. But yeah, it ended great too with the second emotional punch of the J6 story and the J6 families, which there's so much we could get into there, but with some levity at the end as well with Sean Farish.
Sean Farish coming in, that was good.
I was rolling on the floor quite literally.
Yeah, he was good. He was very good. No, it was, and I mean to your point. Well, that really is an interesting way. I hadn't even thought about it there, just because we covered across. I mean, we had a big education panel. We had a panel on local action, precinct committeemen. If you're familiar and been around us for any amount of time at all, we've got a lot of work, pamphlets, books, different things. We work on the precinct level. Our most famous pamphlet, the most important office in America is not the White House. It's the precinct committeeman, the lowest level that gets people to the polls, that organizes. You start to take over those precinct captain roles, you can really start to shift not just counties, congressional districts, states. And like we saw in 2020, all it takes is a few key counties and a few key states, and a presidential election goes one way or another. So that can be an incredibly powerful thing. So from education to strategy at the precinct level to January 6th stuff, talking about the Constitution, citizenship, what that means, education, the family. We hit all the topics, but I did appreciate that off the front, out the gate, we had Mark Houck, who really set the tone of what it looks like when you say, no, I'm going to do what I think is right. I'm going to stand up for what I believe in. I'm not going to cave. You can sue me. You can drag me out of my house. You can threaten me with prison. I didn't do anything wrong. I expressed a political and a religious opinion, and I didn't hurt anyone. Get over it. And he did. He held strong through that. His son was a part of that too. That was a really neat thing that we got to participate in. His 14-year-old, I guess then 13-year-old, a part of the trial, and the one who was with him on the street when all this cropped up last fall. That's a pretty powerful story, I think, that kind of echoes what we were talking about when these shirts were conceived in somebody's mind at the episode of Just Say No. Like, he actually said, no, I'll do this, or yes, I'm going to say that, and you can't make me stop.
He was not willing to just accept their accusations and accept the frame that they gave him for how his life was going to be when they said, okay, no fine, no jail time, no nothing, no punishment, you just have to plead guilty. And that was and he was like, no, I reject this. I reject all of this. This is crap.
And honestly, like, that really does wrap up. And this is what's unique to me about this situation, because you talk about the bookends, Mark Houck, and at the end we talk January 6th. The January 6th thing, I think more and more people are finally coming to realize how important this is. This isn't just, again, and I feel like we've said this before, but it's worth saying over and over again. This is not just the political left persecuting their opponent in Donald Trump or in government, people who have lawyers, who can afford lawyers. The January 6th issue, they are grabbing normal people off the street and throwing them in jail for political expression. Now, you could go down the argument path of, well, should they have even been in D.C. to begin with, the blah, blah, blah. Yeah, peaceful protest is how this works. This nation was founded upon peaceful protest. That's a good thing. And then the rest of everything, when it comes to the Capitol, I'm not even willing to concede stuff in there. Oh, well, people shouldn't have done certain. You know what? When you look at it, barricades were opened, doors were opened, Capitol Police welcomed people in. They were high-fiving. Like, what did anyone do wrong? They were following the instruction and invitation of law enforcement officials. Now, if you broke a window or defaced, public property, yes, this is something wrong. But I mean, like, it is so much more complicated than what people have tried to make it. Like, these normal people went and did a normal thing, attending a political rally. They followed the instructions of law enforcement, and they have been thrown in jail. They are still awaiting trial. Some of them are still awaiting sentencing. Their families are suffering at home without one of the breadwinners, sometimes the breadwinner.
Right.
Like, this is nuts. But you look at it and say, well, that's the January 6th people. Well, they went and did something. I didn't. Neither did Mark Houck. Mark Houck went and did something that a lot of us have done. Mark Houck went and either prayed in front of an abortion clinic, did sidewalk counseling. Mark Houck got dragged out of his home by the corrupt FBI and politically prosecuted by the corrupt DOJ because he expressed a political and a religious opinion against abortion. And he wasn't even violent about it. He didn't go somewhere where there was a quote unquote insurrection or whatever it is. Mark Houck is the next evolution in our understanding that, they are coming for all of us. Really? This is the next step. I think he's a very key and important thing for conservatives, for Americans, not just conservatives, for Americans to understand the powerful, regardless of party, will come after those of us they want to subjugate and not speak out freely if it disagrees with the narrative. And the J6ers are the step beyond Trump and his associates. And now Mark Houck and folks like him are the step beyond that. I've equated it, the Bonhoeffer quote, first they came for that's really it. Like they're coming for the next layers. And we have to, all of us, not say, well, that doesn't seem to affect me. I didn't go to the Capitol on January 6th. Right. No, they're coming for everyone who dissents to the system. The fundamental American thing that we have, dissent. Right. We have to come back and defend these people.
Because they've now, in the wake of January 6th, they've now established the judicial and congressional mechanisms for the persecution of dissenters all across the country, regardless of what they've actually done. Like who I forget his name. So there was a man who was not even in DC on January 6th, but was recently charged. And when this whole apparatus exists, they can just go after anyone. And Ed calls it lawfare, which I think is a very useful term. And I think that term has been getting more popular lately. But it's very true. And once it's a lot easier to give power to the state than it is to take it away. And that was kind of what the founders were thinking when, that's why we have the Constitution, which has limits. It has barriers because, only constitutional amendments don't really usually get overturned, and neither does much legislation, but especially not constitutional amendments. There was the alcohol one, but have there been any other constitutional amendments that have been overturned?
No, not like prohibition.
Right. Yeah. So
which was repealed with another amendment.
Right. And so the government
I can think of a couple that we should.
Yeah. Exactly. But the government is given permission to do something, and it's very, very hard to take that away. Yeah. So hard that it has only happened once on a constitutional level in American history. But, even laws on the books, because they intertwine all these laws together, and, you have these giant bills that's funding here, 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 and here. And it's like, okay, we should get rid of that. But if we get rid of that, if we overturn that law, that means we're getting rid of, the right of children to pick daisies, and it's like, you monster, how could you want to do that? Right. So when they entangle all these things together, so that's just one of their defense mechanisms. But even just giving the FBI, making it normal for the FBI to persecute people in certain ways, for them to just show up, say, we're taking you whether we have a warrant or not, and that's normal, and the government doesn't have oversight for those kinds of things. People aren't making lawsuits against the government for those kinds of things. They're just, we can get away with this. We can just do this. We can just unlawfully arrest people, and what's the point if it's unlawful if nobody's going to hold us accountable? So that's the biggest issue here, is that they have this entire structure that they can now use to go after whoever. And they even had the whole run through of like setting people up on a grand scale with the possibility of there being federal agents on the ground on January 6th, as well as the police officers and guards being like, come on in. And there's videos of them saying, come on in. Yeah. And you can people working for the government on the government's payroll meant to protect these specific places can say, do this exact thing, and very friendly and amicably, and then you can be persecuted for that exact same thing after, and that's what's terrifying to me. That's like if a police officer shows up,
that's the definition of entrapment.
If a police officer shows up and it's like, I need you to do this, I need you to do that, and you do it, and then he slaps handcuffs on you, like, what were you supposed to do?
Yeah, it is an incredible thing that's happening. And this really is a line in the sand moment, because to your point, whether we give them the authority to do something like prohibition, or whether they've just simply taken it.
Right.
Once that power is obtained, getting rid of it, making them stop is incredibly hard, which is why this is such an important issue for. It doesn't matter what your issue is. If your thing is pro-life, if your thing is smaller government, if your thing is less taxes, education, states' rights, gun rights, whatever it is, free speech, civil liberties, whatever your thing is, all of us have to, with great and equal force, stand up and say no to what's happening to the January 6th protesters. Because this is the line in the sand. We let them have the authority and the power to ramrod these people through the legal system. The several times I heard it this weekend, it's true. The process is the punishment. At the end of the day, a lot of these folks, what they're trying to do to them is intimidate and scare them. But it's very interesting when you stand up, it's just they don't have a leg to stand on, the government prosecutors. Now, in D.C., that doesn't matter because the court's as corrupt as the prosecutors.
Right.
But thankfully for Mark Houck's sake, that's not true across the board, the federal court he was in. Jury acquitted him quickly. The judge seemed to be very glad for this. It was the prosecutors who were the baddies in the courtroom. But in DC, that's not the same thing. But this is the line in the sand moment, because you give them this authority, you're emboldening them to then come after anyone for anything else that they don't like. So, to your point. So I think that we really need to refocus and realize it doesn't matter if it's been almost 3 years. It is still going on for individuals. Families are still suffering. And you and I have a massive stake in this fight. And to the point of folks we heard, we had some great, the January 6th, getting more specific. Cynthia Hughes was with us Saturday night, the founder of the Patriot Freedom Project, which is bringing an incredible amount of awareness to this, but in particular, taking care of the families and taking care of those who can't afford good legal or couldn't at the beginning afford good legals, because the public defenders in DC weren't worth much.
Right.
So they've been taking care of people, but Derek Evans was with us. Derek Evans was the West Virginia legislator who was elected in 2020. They would not seat him in January of 2021 because he went to the January 6th protests. So I consider him a former state legislator nonetheless. But he's running for...
That's how he's listed on Wikipedia.
And he is, even though, but he's running for Congress. He was there. He went. He fought. He lost in the corrupt DC courts. He served his time. He's out. And now he wants to go back. But if he goes back in Congress, I guarantee he's going to be there to kick some teeth in. And Will Pope was with us. He is still going on with his fight. He is still upcoming his trial. 2024 or something I heard? He keeps, and apparently they really hate him because he is really good. And let's go through that video again. Let's look at these things. And he keeps finding all of this stuff that just, it's incredible. It shows almost unequivocally the corruption behind that day and everything since then. And the people who expose this are the most dangerous to them. And there are some good ones, but they need more help. They need our financial support. They need our vocal support. Like, we need to give them the megaphone so that their information gets out, because all this stuff gets suppressed. You never see this anywhere. The Epic Times talks about it, Newsmax, some of the other good ones. But even then, that still doesn't reach people like everyone who just flips on the TV and has Fox on, or people who walk through the airports and, heaven forbid, have to deal with CNN. This issue needs more attention from all of us, because this is important to all of us. It doesn't matter if you agree with what they were there protesting on January 6th. If you think the election was perfectly fine and no one should have gone and protested it, fine. But what they're doing to them now ought to have you angry and doing something.
Well, and if you think incredible. The election was fine, you should watch this movie.
Yeah, there's a segue. That's a good one.
Yeah, I just thought the irony of even suggesting that election could be reasonable was funny, considering that 2,000 Mules was on the table, which we showed over the weekend.
We did. Friday night, special showing.
I got to see it for the first time. It was not what I expected it to be.
Really? Yeah. Tell me more. First, we like to do giveaways. We've got some giveaways. First person to shoot us an email with your name and address gets a copy of 2,000 Mules. Go. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, it was... So I had known a little bit about the allegations of fraud. And
by the way, if you're watching on YouTube, this is when you'll want to switch over to Rumble, because we're about to get, on YouTube. I feel like, go ahead, tell us more.
Yeah, I had known a little bit about the allegations of fraud, and I had seen videos from late 2020 of the ballot dropping, and, these trucks showing up in the middle of the night with like a bajillion ballots, and being like, oh, that's really weird. But I had no idea of the extent of the ballot harvesting of mail-in ballots that were then collected by nonprofits who paid people to go drop them off at the mail ballot drop boxes. And then I did not know about the extent of that, first and foremost. But then what was interesting is the way in which they tracked those people, which I was not expecting. And it was like they
makes you want to throw your smartphone away, doesn't it?
Yeah, but they were like, oh, we could track all these people's phones and we could see, okay, here's a person who went to nonprofits and then went to multiple different ballot drop-off locations multiple different times. And what other good reason do you have for that unless you are working for the government and are there to like make sure it works? But those people you see, it's like, again, they go here, they go to wherever they need to go to count the ballots. But okay, these people are going to nonprofits. That's weird. And they keep coming back. And then we look at the videos, and you can also tell because all of it's recorded.
Oh yeah.
So if somebody works for the government and they're there and they like open it and take them out and take them to where they're supposed to go, or they like fix a screw or something, versus somebody coming up at 2 a.m. with a backpack and they're like shoving them in there.
That's what I love about this movie is it's so easy to just kind of lose your way in the conversation about election integrity in the 2020 election specifically.
Right.
Because so many people have just, the election was stolen. And it's like, okay, why?
Yeah.
Tell me specifically why. Like, I don't not believe you, but just give me some specifics.
Because everybody has always said that about every election that they lost.
Well, Democrats certainly did in 2016, 2018. There's been a lot of times. Democrats have. Let's not talk about that, though. Oh, yeah, 2000. Don't even get me started on pregnant Chads. But pregnant Chad meant a whole different thing 23 years ago, didn't it?
I have no idea what that means.
That election was before you were born.
16
Wasn't
years
it?
ago? I was alive 16 years ago.
I'm talking about 2000. 23 years ago.
I would have been alive for election day.
No, but okay.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't make me feel any less old. But all right, cool. But no, like I remember that on the news. I mean, I wasn't an adult necessarily working in politics at that point, but I remembered, oh my gosh, Florida and lawsuits and Al Gore and George W. Bush. But I mean, that drama compared to this. Whew. But one of the things, that's what I was gonna say. One of the things that I really appreciate about this, and the reason you should watch it, and the reason that I hope one of you, I need to go check my email, is going to grab a copy of this, because I have a copy to give away. Actually, I have more than one copy to give away, but we're going to hold back one. First person. It's not just wild, like, oh, the whole thing was stolen. And it also isn't just, oh, those are all ridiculous little anecdotal, none of it's scientific. You got one video of one person, it looks kind of shady, but you're inferring or imply, what's the correct word there? You're taking one, I guess you would call it, what is that, inductive reasoning? Oh, look, someone put in a more than one ballot at 357, therefore the election was stolen. Well, pause. One person in one location. But 2,000 Mules does an amazing job following, very specifically, shockingly enough, 2,000 mules. If you're not familiar, there are 2,000 of these ballot mules. A mule, someone who smuggles or carries something. 2,000 of them, for which they have cold, hard geolocation data. They have cold hard geolocation data
and video
at the ballot boxes, and they can show, and they actually go through in the film and show. Now, we're not talking about everywhere. We're only talking about what we have cold hard facts for. And here where we have cold hard facts. And at the end of the movie, here we go. Like, now, what were the numbers of how this state actually went, Biden versus Trump? And then here are the numbers that we can prove if even just 5 ballots per person we followed. So did this one change? Might not have changed the state. This one, far more possibly. And that's at a conservative estimate than the actual margin between the two candidates on the vote statewide. Like, you start looking at it and going, oh man, and this is just only what we know about. So now it goes, it's not even just like one tiny little example. If one person dropped their ballot at 357, that must mean fraud. And then think about what that means for the country. Well, that doesn't mean a whole lot. When 2,000 people are caught on video and on cell phone data stuffing tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of ballots, likely, certainly tens of thousands in key areas, you start to look at it and say, okay, now that probably means something, because we believe public polling all the time, and public polling polls at the best polls 2,000 people as a representative of the country, and we look at it and go, oh, that might be good. They had a pretty big sampling, 2,000 people. There's 350 million people in America. So we trust 2,000 people as a representative sample. There are 2,000 mules with absolute statistics here. I think that's good enough for us to make some inferences about the rest of the country. And I mean, that does, this is just at bare minimum enough to go, okay, there's some stuff we shouldn't do again. We shouldn't do it again. You don't even have to go back and try to, let's undo. I don't know. I don't even advocate for that, going back and undoing.
It's a little late now.
Well, and that's the thing. I've been of the opinion, personally, Joe Biden is the president of the United States. He was constitutionally installed. Now, if you don't like how people went or what people did or didn't do in Congress to help that get there, if he did or didn't cheat in certain states or counties to get there, I'm not commenting on any of that, but he was installed. Cheat or not, he was the president, and he is. But we can definitely look at what happened and decide we will never, ever, ever allow these things to happen again, because look what it opens up, the wide range of possibilities. And that's just at a bare minimum, and my opinion, which anyone should be able to get on board with. And unless you are just opposed to it for a political reason, there's no reason you should be able to deny. And I personally, I go much farther than that. But
what's nobody's shown that, oh, hey, these geolocating, this like lab that was essentially able to collect all this data, this data agglomeration institute, whatever it was. Nobody has whatever you want to call it. Nobody has.
I was stumbling before during. It's okay.
Nobody has shown like, oh, hey, their evidence is fake, or here's a problem with the way that they've gotten their evidence. I mean, maybe people have made some claims like that, but I've yet to see kind of a, here is why the evidence is wrong. Here is some issue with the method they used that would have substantially skewed the results, especially when, like even if the evidence was wrong here and there, they have the videos, they can see the faces, and it's like, okay, the same person was here and here, and we can count the amount of ballots they put in at these different. So nobody's been like, hey, that's wrong. You didn't actually see their faces. You were hallucinating. It's like, no, they have the videos.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
Exist. So yeah, that was good. Man, there was so much this weekend, so much to go over it.
Oh yeah. And I mean, those are some of the biggies, but oh man, it was really neat to Tiffany Justice and Moms for Liberty. Man, there's a movement. The vote of angry parents is a power. I've said that since the Loudoun County stuff first blew up in Virginia. Was not last year, 2021. Angry parents is an incredibly powerful voting block, and we need to understand and hook onto that, because they have a right to be angry over lots of different things. The whole system. So it's really neat to have her around. Alex Newman, of course, is another fantastic source of information.
Well researched.
Oh my goodness.
Such a good speaker too. It was super engaging.
Excellent. Colonel John Eidsmoe was one of our favorites. He kicked us off right after Mark Houck, gave us a really good overview, Constitution, where we are, what it means, where we are now, what we have to defend, a few different areas. Our education panel was good. We talked about the globalists on the march, COVID coming around the corner again. It is election season after all. Power of the local folks. We had, I know that if you're a regular listener of the Pro America Report, and we should probably wrap it up here. We're about 30 minutes. I'd make sure we respect everyone's time. Yeah, Todd Bensman came in person. I'm just used to hearing Todd's voice on the radio. It was really nice to see his face too. But man, there's no one else. When you want to tie together the border, national security, terrorism concerns, foreign policy, the corruption in the administration, wrap it all together. Todd knows his stuff. There's no better information source about anything going on at the southern border than Todd
and we
Bensman.
had Garrett Ziegler over the
That was one of my favorites.
And he was actually on the Pro America Report yesterday. So if you missed
that's right.
in-person interview.
I'll put that link.
Yes, if you missed Ed's in-person interview, you can go back and listen to it. He did a double segment, so extended interview with Garrett Ziegler. But oh my goodness, I kind of want to get like a physical copy of the report just to have it when they nuke his website into oblivion.
He's loaded.
Holy cow. He seemed like he was going to go crazy up there because there was so much information, and like somebody needs, I don't think anybody's done this. Somebody needs to just get a nice camera set up and set aside like 5 hours and
just let Garrett go.
And just sit down and have a 5-hour interview and just try to be like, okay, let's start at the very beginning. And
it really is amazing because I mean, well, I've heard it's really what happened. They took which at this point it's indisputed. You want to dispute it with us, you're wrong. Like the laptop belonged to Hunter Biden. That hard drive was his. Period.
That's why they didn't mention him in the hit piece.
The FBI, the FBI has confirmed that, and there's copies of it floating around. But I mean, they took a crackhead's hard drive. This is what I've heard, and it's kind of true. Like it was all over the place. Not organized, no file structure. what did he say? There were 2 spreadsheets on the whole thing. This is not, how did Garrett put it? I say that. I've heard people, I've heard people say they took a crackhead's hard drive and made sense of it. But as Garrett more eloquently put it than those other folks I've heard, there were 2 spreadsheets on this entire hard drive. This is not representing the life of an organized person.
Yeah, right.
There's a very different way of saying the same thing. Well, kind of. But that's what they did. They took this mess of text messages, pictures, videos, emails, files, documents, and they put it all together in a, well, semi-coherent, in a coherent stream to actually say, no, this happened. This conversation happened. This email and document were sent. This deal with numbers was made. And then this set of text messages ensued after. Like they put it together for you. And he did it with a small team of people with really not much of a budget. And no one had yet done that. He said, fine, we'll make sense of it. We will put all of the puzzle pieces together. And they did. And now, man, Garrett's ready for, like, he's out for it. He is ready to go back and just wreak vengeance across this, corrupt system. Not for anything they did to him, just in general for what they've done to America.
Right.
And then they're lying about it still. He's loaded for bear and ready. He was fun. That was good.
It's kind of terrifying the amount that he's been able to uncover and how determined he is to spread that and do something about it. So it's very cool, very exciting.
That's an incredibly worthwhile site. So to his point, we've got council recorded and there's videos, different videos coming. But in the meantime, he was on the Pro America Report yesterday, and it'll be a lot of the same. In their double segment, they did get into quite a bit of the same content. So go and take a listen in the meantime. But that was another highlight standout for me. That was good. It was all good. The Pro-Life Luncheon was really neat too. We actually had our international connection there. First of all, it's always wonderful to hear Bridget Van Means. If you're not familiar with Bridget Van Means and Thrive Nation, they're here. Thrive Alive, is it Thrive Alive STL or thrivealivestl.org? Take a look at what they're doing. Bridget is involved in pro-life, not just from policy and legal and political side. They are involved, boots on the ground, stepping into the lives of young women in crisis, saving. They save women and babies. Period. They are the boots on the ground that are doing that from a medical end, from a social end, and like what the organization that Bridget has put together is just indomitable. They will not be stopped no matter what. So it was really neat to have her and hear from her. And then also we made the international connection too. We had was it Yerzy? Okay, I didn't actually ever have to say his name from stage, so I didn't practice. But we had a really neat guy, the founder of
Ordo Juris.
Thank you. That one I knew, but you broke in. I was going to collect my thoughts for a minute.
He struggles with Poland.
Ordo Juris. Yeah, it's my half German. I'm good with that. But once we go into the Eastern Bloc, I'm out. But to hear from him and to hear a perspective of pro-family, pro-life fighting in Europe, there is a resurgence of it. We always talk about how Europe is farther gone than the U.S., and that's us in a few years. It's neat to see there are pockets of resistance at a national level. Europe, Poland, Hungary, where they are starting to see that kind of family-oriented policy come back, life-oriented policy, and it's doing pretty neat things. It's certainly markedly different than the rest of the European countries around them, following a much further progressive path, the leftist path. So that was really neat. It was great. It was a fantastically well-rounded conference. It was exciting. I had a great time. I haven't heard, and there's always something, whether it was one meal wasn't that great or one speaker or panel was a little on the dry side. I haven't heard a single complaint about any of it. I was all good feedback. It was really good. Yeah. So, I mean, I hate to make you feel like you just missed out and it sucks for you and you can't do anything about it.
But there will be more Eagle Councils.
There will.
Do not miss out on the next one because it was awesome and we missed you.
Yeah, it's true. We did miss you. We didn't even know who we're missing, but no, I'm kidding. We know you. We know all of you. And I'm sorry I haven't been, I haven't been shouting out as much here from stuff because we had our own things to get through. But anyway, it was a wonderful weekend. There's a lot of good stuff. There will be a lot of good stuff coming from it. I promise you that. There will be other opportunities to get involved and get engaged if you haven't yet. But we'll go ahead and wrap it there. Anything final thought? You put a punch. Can you summarize our conference in one sentence? Go.
Eagle Council was awesome, and Mason and Ryan were there having a great time, and you should have been there.
We didn't have a live caucus, unfortunately.
That
would have been, we almost stormed the stage once to make sure the unauthorized part was included in the caucus, but it was just too interesting. We were enraptured in what was going on, so we skipped it. But
so yeah,
all right,
tune in next week. We're excited to see you.
We are next Thursday at noon for another very unauthorized caucus. We'll look forward to seeing you then. Thank you so much. Go to philschlafly.com and sign up for the email list. You'll get the resource email after this with several things in it today and also every week forward. You don't want to miss it.
And like, comment, subscribe, red button, green button, Rumble, X, Facebook, whatever it is. Do what you need to do to be with us next week.
Make it happen.